With the release of the X-Men '97 show coming out, I've been seeing a question asked more frequently than ever. Why do bigoted people enjoy the X-Men? And the most obvious answer is that it's fake, but let me elaborate. When I say bigoted people, I'm not simply referring to trolls or people who are anti-immigration. I'm referring to people who legitimately believe that ethnic groups have higher values than others. That isn't necessarily everybody I'm talking about, but it definitely encompasses those people. So why exactly do people find it weird when those who aren't receptive to social movements actually like the X-Men? If you take a look at the majority of the storylines, they typically tell a message of trying to integrate with society and coexist with people who are different from you. Villains range from humans who want to subjugate mutants like Trask, and mutants who want to subjugate humans like Apocalypse. What makes the X-Men admirable and being worthy of called heroes is their ability to condemn both, holding mutants and humans to the same level of accountability. So why is it that people who hold others to different levels of accountability solely based off the way they were born like this series? As stated earlier, I think that the best reason for this is because it's fake. Most people who engage with a piece of media won't really change their day-to-day actions just because of it. You don't need to believe in God in order to like Prince of Egypt. You can admire it for its storytelling, characters, and animation. Not saying that somebody can't learn messages from media that they apply to their real lives, or whether or not it's a good or bad thing. It's just that some people are going to be way more intimately engaged with a piece of media than others. An extension of the fact that the X-Men are fictional is that they aren't the minorities some say they represent. Despite the fact that Ben Grimm and Magneto are both Jews, Trask only wants one of them dead, and it's not the one that's shaped like the bottom of a pirate ship.
You think you got problems? You take a good look, pal.
The reason why some people don't see mutants as representative of other ethnic groups or LGBT minorities is because those groups already exist in the X-Men universe, which means that the issue of mutants getting integrated with society is entirely different from ethnic minorities integrating with society. This irrevocably devalues X-Men as an allegory. There's no reason for mutation to be an analog for something that already exists within the universe of X-Men. If you want to write about discrimination and you bring up specific races and sexualities, then there's no real need for an analog. Just tell the story about those topics. Another thing to say is that contrary to popular belief, Charles Xavier is not supposed to be MLK, and Magneto isn't supposed to be Malcolm X. Stan Lee, as well as the other writers behind Marvel Comics, were completely fine with tackling social issues at the time. Case in point, Magneto being a Holocaust survivor.
I've always tried to do our stories so that it didn't matter if you were of the white race, the black race, the brown race, or whatever. So social issues I try to get in the background or underlaying a plot, but never to the point of letting it interfere with the story or hitting the reader over the head.
This is something like the Holocaust. Millions of our people lost.
Don't get me wrong, I really like X-Men, but the social commentary isn't exactly rock solid. For example, this one line of dialogue from House of X has really been bugging me. Jean Grey says the scientists who made genocide robots have a greater moral character than the people who fight in wars. Let's put this into the perspective of the real world. The German soldiers who fought in the trenches with no knowledge of what was going on in concentration camps have a lower moral character than those who were experimenting on the Jews, as well as those who were trying to make the atomic bomb for world domination. If we take Krakoa seriously, the majority of humanity should seldom interact with minorities. This is where the whole entire sci-fi aspect of X-Men seeps in and ends up messing up the allegory and metaphor that the authors try to go for sometimes. The mutants aren't humanity with a different coat of paint, they are the evolution in humanity. It's the reason why villains like Trask are more afraid of the X-Men than they are the Fantastic Four. This technically is another issue of how people in the world dislike mutants but also don't dislike capes even though they're practically interchangeable. And the best reason I can give for it is that capes are more of a case-by-case basis, whereas mutants are significantly more widespread than normal superheroes, with the abilities they have tending to be more destructive and unpredictable. The example I like to bring up is Jay from Ultimate X-Men. The only ability he has is one he can't control, where he just kills everybody around him. Another good example is Rogue, who hurts everybody she touches. And that's the core of the issue here. What part about having a different skin color means that you hurt those around you without your knowledge? Equating mutants to marginalized people is essentially calling them ticking time bombs, not to mention the fact that they are literally being called a different species, something that would lead more into separation than unification.
Humanity has always feared that which is different. Well, I'm here to tell you, to tell the world, you're right to fear us.
I can't speak for LGBT, but I can definitely say that mutants are very bad at portraying racial groups. There is one marginalized group in America that I find as a better metaphor for mutants, and that would be the mentally challenged. For some people, what they have is a gift that allows them to do amazing things. Others also have the ability to do great things, but they need special attention to keep their birthmarks in check. And for those extremely unfortunate people, it's a soul net negative that prevents the people who are born with it from contributing to society. Though I think that the messages, meaning, and social commentary are lacking aspects of the story, they're just that. Aspects of the story, not the entire experience. I wouldn't say a comic is awful if it had bad art. You can like something that has bad art. You can like something that has bad characters. You can like something that has a horrendous story. Just because somebody dislikes an aspect of the piece of media, that doesn't take away the legitimate enjoyment they have from the other aspects of it. If there's any takeaway you should get from this video, it's that. You don't need to care about the ills of our world in order to be immersed in the laser-focused dedication that Cyclops has, the unrelenting moral rigidity of Nightcrawler, the tragedy of Rogue, the cleverness of Beast, and most importantly, Emma Frost's big boobies.